Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Buster Show. Today, we have another very special guest, Mr. Brandon Steiner. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Everything good with you?
Everything is great. How are you?
I'm doing well. No complaints. Everything is, the weather. Obviously, we're in the middle of a really adverse situation that we can't seem to get through that quickly. So, the inner strength here, to keep grinding, keep going. And, my thought process is just try to figure out what I want to look like and what kind of position I want to be in when this is all over. And that's kind of where I take my mindset, as opposed to watching the news and getting caught up with, wow, I feel like I'm on house arrest here, where, you're kind of limited where you can go, limited what you can do and who you can do it with. I'm just trying to figure out what I could do, how much I could do, at the same time staying safe and help myself at the same time.
100%. And what I've heard from a lot of people too, especially those who have come on here, is just the reminder that because
yes, that's true. Yes,
that it's so difficult right now, that means it's only going to get easier afterwards, because just more you're going to tough through this and just get better and better and better at dealing with this situation and building, whether it be brands or companies or new products or shows within this. And then, like anything, just gets easier as you continue on.
Well, sometimes, I think, easier is really not the, I don't know if I would use that word. I think right now, if you're looking for easy, I think anytime you're looking for easy is probably not a good thing to be thinking about, because no matter what, life's difficult. Most jobs, if they're really anything worth anything, are difficult. I was telling a CEO the other day, I'm like, you got a hard job. I don't care how long you go to a spa and then go to a retreat and then work out. Tomorrow will be a new set of problems. And I think there's always a new set of problems. And I think if you know that your job is difficult, you're starting a company that to run it is going to be hard, or to get it started is going to be hard. As you move into difficulties, you're not shocked by it, because you've born into that. Your mindset's born into that. Like, I just started 2 new companies, Collectible Exchange, the Steiner Agency, after 32 years of building and starting an industry and a business. And it's freaking hard. I got to tell you, but I know that, I've started businesses before. It still doesn't take away from it being hard, but you have the defense. If you're going swimming and you got a bathing suit on, the water's gonna be a little cold, you jump in, but you got your suit, you're ready. You got your towel when you come out. And, if you don't know it's cold, you got your regular clothes on, you're not much in a position to jump into the water. And I think it's just really important to really get your expectations, and get your expectations straightened out into appreciation. I think a lot of people get caught up with expectations, and I get caught up with appreciations. And I think it's so important, because what happens is when your expectations don't get met and you think one thing and then another thing happens, you get disappointed. And disappointment is like kryptonite, to Superman. Most people are walking around with a lot of disappointments. Can you believe this virus? Can you believe my job furloughed me? Can you believe I'm not making as much money as I thought I was going to make? Hey, based on what? Who said you're supposed to make all that money? Who guaranteed you that?
Yeah, they definitely told themselves that. But I think for me, like, when I say easy, I mean that I enjoy it, that I love it, because that's
Because when you enjoy what you're doing, everything's a lot simpler and easier. That's true.
So
Good point.
And I love kind of how you've always done everything in your life in terms of doing what you love and diving into the collectibles world and the, memorabilia world, which I am so in love with, like yourself. Where I want to talk about the beginning for a second. Where did you realize that you could take, or when and how did you realize you could take that passion for collectibles and memorabilia and sports and actually turn it into a business way before social media?
Well, I was looking at the collectible thing, and people have been collecting stuff, for 100 years, frankly, and maybe even more, So I looked at the business and I thought there was a lot of room for improvement. When I started getting into collectibles, I was a marketing company, still have that marketing company. That's what the Steiner Agency is, where we book athletes and do appearances. And when I did the collectible thing, I only thought that was going to supplement. So if I hired Eli Manning or Peyton Manning to go do an appearance for a corporate thing, back then it was Roger Staubach or Franco Harris, what I thought would be cool is I'd bring 12 footballs to sign for the corporate customer to be able to give out to the people who were there, or maybe to give to clients. I never really looked at me getting into the collectible thing as something that I was going to do as a more of a fandom thing and more of a retail thing. I was really just looking at it as a corporate thing. So, and I was doing that. I mean, I was always a saver and always a collector. I always loved signed stuff and different knick-knack stuff. But what's crazy is I was on the train in 1994. This is not going to be as sexy a story as you think, but it's actually the truth of it, because I am a spiritual solution-based salesperson, not just somebody who just does something just for the money, although the money always matters. So I'm on the train and I'm on the Metro North, and you're a Westchester, Connecticut guy, that's the train that gets you into the city. And I got to tell you, going on that train was misery for me. I hated getting on the train, especially, waiting. I missed the train and everything else. And across from me is this woman arguing with her husband. Another guy had his shoes off. Another person was eating, and it just was not working for me. This 45-minute train ride. And my mom had just passed away, and the Rangers had just won the Stanley Cup. And the New York Rangers, the hockey team, winning the Stanley Cup was comparable like to the Cubs winning recently a couple of years ago. We hadn't won in 54 years. The whole city was going crazy. That was an original 16. So I looked at this guy's newspaper, and there's a picture of Mark Messier with a Stanley Cup, grinning. And and I'm like, my wife was making most of the money. I wasn't doing really well at that point. I was making a little bit of money. I didn't have the balls to ask her for me to get my own car to drive in the city. It was expensive. So I'm thinking to myself, I got to get a car. I got to go make some money. So I look at this paper and I'm like, I bet you I could sell 15,000 of those. That's the amount of people that fit into Madison Square Garden that probably was at that game when the Rangers won the Cup. So it takes me like 3 months. And I always say, it doesn't really matter where you are. As miserable as I was, trekking into the city, not making a lot of money, trying to figure out where this Steiner company was going at the time, I wasn't willing to accept it anymore. I'm like, I don't mind. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm not getting on this train anymore. And I got to figure out how to make enough money to go buy a car. So I look at this thing, and I track Mark down. It takes me like 3 months. Calling this account. And again, it doesn't matter where you are. It's what you want to accept. I'm not willing to accept getting on this train anymore. Therefore, I'm willing to do anything and everything to track his sister, brother, uncle, cousin, accountant, lawyer down. I track Mark down, and I sign my first collectible deal. Not for the betterment of mankind, not because I want to do all these cool things for the fans, but I just want to get off the goddamn train. And so I pushed myself into the collectible business, signing this first guy to a collectible deal because I thought I could make a lot of money. And sure enough, I did. I got sold the hell out of it. I did a 2-year deal with Mark, and we did really, really well. I didn't really even see it coming. I wasn't even sure it was going to work, but it was worth the chance because I knew if this worked, I'd be able to go make some money and then buy the car, which is what I did. So to get the collectible company started with a really bad day on a train, kind of dwelling probably on my mom's death, not feeling too good about myself, and coming up with a high level of unacceptance and saying, I'm not going to tolerate this position anymore. And only then was I ready to do whatever it took to do something about it, which ended up hence pushing me to start another division to my existing company, which was to start selling collectibles to anyone and everyone that wanted to buy a Mark Messier photo. Right. It was a goddamn money grab. I'm not going to lie. But, in fairness, I was a solution-based salesperson. I realized after I did that deal that there was a lot of issues out there in collecting with fraudulent stuff. No one had ever done hockey collectibles, really. It was not a market that had even been created. And all kinds of opportunities came from that initial money grab. And the message I wanted to say to you is, listen, I think it's important to do things for the right reasons, but sometimes it's okay just do them because you just want to make some money. So I can go I bought myself a nice Lexus and drove from that day on. And I mean, sometimes it's okay to say, something, I just want to be a little richer than I am now because I want to buy a capitalistic thing, a monetary thing. I'm going to be a little pretentious. I want to upgrade my car. I want to buy a little nicer house, and I'm going to go bust my ass to go get it. But I think when you're doing that sort of thing, if you're doing that thing year in and year out, and that's basically the main course of your action of working on a day-to-day, you're probably going to be very disappointed when you get down to the end of that train line because that will not bring you to happiness, and that's not going to keep you fulfilled. So you got to be careful. But every now and then, if you have something really that's important to you that you want to have, I mean, that's part of life, and it's okay to get into a money grab situation, I think. But if that's your whole game, then you're just going to end up waking up one day with a pot full of money and not a whole lot else to show for it, and you're probably holding yourself back to finding out what you're truly here to do, and the other things that really can create a lot of joy other than just making money.
Well, first off, that's an amazing story. And I love that you went after, one of the biggest guys to start.
It was crazy. I mean, nobody had Mark. Mark was a very,
How do you get a guy? Because I've heard some crazy stories of, how people went after advertisers or players early on, as crazy as like putting their competitor in the newspaper to catch their attention and then calling them, telling them that their competitor was advertising in the newspaper. Like, I've heard the craziest stories in terms of, how you get people signed. How did you get him signed at the very beginning?
I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to obtain, customer acquisition and to grow your business. And obviously it's something that you have to be good at, because if you really want to grow and build a company of any kind of size, you have to be good at figuring out how to go get, high quality customers. And, you're not the only person usually trying to do that. And I think it's very simple. I mean, yes, I would always go to competitors. If I saw a player wearing a Nike sneaker, I would go to Reebok, I'd go to Adidas and say, hey, by the way, I'd always go to competitors where I saw Amex is now with the NBA. I go to MasterCard and say, you guys should get in and do some more stuff at MLB, or maybe we could do some stuff with some of the players to combat that. And we talked that, backdoor promotion. But the real answer to your question is, and most people don't think about this, like, what's your real true value proposition? What value do you bring to the table?
Mm-hmm.
And that's critical. And you have to find value in what you're doing if you really want to obtain a really good customer and keep one. And value is what you could do for someone that they can't do for themselves. So value is what you can do for someone they can't do for themselves. And that's what you have to broadcast. And often the value you can provide doesn't always lead to a bottom line. But nobody wants to get rid of someone who's thinking about my problems and thinking about stuff that I don't want to do or can't do.
Interesting.
So when you look at the value proposition, people don't realize, like, I built up some big companies and I've done really well. But I started off, my initial value, which is probably, well, how did you get some of these players? I started doing fan mail. Back in the late 80s and 90s, no internet, whatever. You wanted to communicate to a player, you wrote them a letter, went to the stadium, and so, a lot of these players were sitting with boxes of mail, and they felt guilty about throwing them out because it could be some sick kid. It could be somebody asking for a favor. There could be some business in there. So what I did is I found a niche of saying, hey, I'll do your fan mail for you. And what that did is I took care of a problem that the player had. At the same time, I saw opportunity in the mail. I opened up thousands of letters. I'd find 2 or 3 appearances. I found 5 or 6 really important letters that, a player should respond to because somebody was sick, or maybe it was a distant person that they had known and they were trying to get a hold of them. So, and then it caused me to have to go meet up with the player at least once a month. And then I would talk to him about other ideas. So, it's the same thing. Like when I met Derek Jeter, the first thing I did is I focused on his foundation, his turn 2. I know it was really important to him and how we're going to raise money, how we could build up the foundation. And I was very instrumental in helping him do that. And then it led to us developing a really longer term relationship, contracts, autographs, appearances, clinics. But it's initiated with me trying to figure out what I could do for him that he needed help with. And when most people meet a very influential account, when they meet a wealthy person or a celebrity, the first thing they think is what they can get from them. Wow, this person knows a lot of people. Or wow, this person can, man, if I ever can land this account, this could be a huge account for me. When I meet influential people, and I really mean this sincerely, and since I'm a little kid, I've been thinking this way because my mother taught me this. I think about what I can do for that person, what value I can provide. I don't chase down a relationship until I have value that I feel I can provide that makes sense. I don't just start calling people up and hoping something's going to stick. I call people up with value propositions that I think is an idea that can help them do something they can't do for themselves, help them save money. I always try to start a relationship off with a value proposition of me giving some value to them that says, wow, this guy has, wow, maybe this can help me. because it's the only solid ground you can stand on when you're trying to develop a new relationship, particularly with a high quality relationship.
Totally.
It's amazing how many people are just focused in on what they have and what they're selling and what they're trying to do, and calling me up to convince me about wanting to use that, instead of really understanding what I'm going through, what I need, and possibly finding some value. And listen, sometimes it's hard to figure out what that value is. So find out what that person's charity is or cause is or what their kids are into, and see how you can help through a side door of, maybe getting on a board or helping a charity that that is a really, really important charity to a potential decision maker. There's a lot of different ways to attack it, but it really starts with the give, not the get.
I think that's incredible advice for everybody listening. And also, I think one thing to note too, whenever I get a bunch of cold emails, it's always very easy to figure out, like, there are two types. There are ones with U's and ones with I's. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's
That's
people,
true.
all right, I this, I that, I would really love an internship. I would really love this. And I would really appreciate if you could hop on the phone for 30 minutes. Or it's like, you helped me so much, like, whatever you need, I would love to be, or not even I, but, am available if you need a helping hand, that kind of thing. And that's how I internally divide emails.
Even my biggest break, when I think about my biggest breaks, it was because there was some value of either some experience or something that I had that I was able to do for somebody. Even the Hard Rock Cafe, and that's before you were born, but in 1984, the first Hard Rock in New York, there was one in LA, the two owners had split up, and he was opening up this gigantic restaurant. I happen to have experience in larger restaurants. I was a restaurateur. And only until when I was doing my second interview did I notice a computer on the floor. And it was a new computer system, because back then, if you wanted to order something from the waiter, she or he wrote it down, ran into the kitchen, and gave it to the chef. This was the first computer system where you go into a computer terminal. As crazy as most of you think that's just normal.
Right.
That was the most abnormal thing in the 80s, because everybody wrote it down, and you ran into the kitchen, and the chef would try to read what you wrote. So this was the first especially if you're opening up a restaurant that was a chain, you'd be able to go to a computer terminal, type in all the different things you wanted, but more importantly, the central office could see when the busiest hours in that restaurant were, what items they were selling the most of, because when you were doing it manually, it's very hard to get that data. Mm-hmm. So here I am, I worked for Hyatt prior to Hard Rock, and they were the first ones to use this computer system, the NCR 2160. It was the first multi-unit computer system for restaurants and hotels. And I was incredibly trained on it because it was the first hotel multi-unit chain that used it. So they threw a lot of training on you. So anything that happened with the damn thing, I'm the most computer literate person you can imagine. That's what's so ironic about the story but I drilled into this computer because I needed that information to get promotions. So I really knew how to work the computer system, because I knew that if I didn't, I would never learn how to cut staff, push more on certain specials that were higher priced, and figure out my menu. So I use it to a T. I go into the Hard Rock interviews, and I'm doing well, but I got a feeling it's 2,000 applicants for one job. How am I going to get this job? And as I'm walking out, I see the 2160 on the floor. And I turned to Isaac Tigert, who was the owner at the time. You're going to use the 2160? He goes, how do you know that? I said, I'm completely trained on it. I can take this computer apart. As it turns out, I don't get the job. Heartbroken. 2 full interviews. I get a call a week after they open, after I'd stopped by and said, listen, what's going on? He goes, well, our computer system's down. I stopped by in the restaurant 3 days later to say, look, if you ever need anything, I'm available. I'm kind of bummed I didn't get the job, but if anything changes, I'm here. A week later, I get a call and say, we're having so many problems with this computer. You think you can come in for an interview? And that's why I got the assistant general.
Wow.
And I'm the youngest manager in that restaurant. It was 2,000 covers a day, 250 people online for over 12 hours a day to get into this 250-seat restaurant. And I'm the youngest manager. I mean, you're talking about hiring managers that were at least 5 or 6 years older than me. I was only 23 and far more experience. And I surpassed them in money, salary, and the title, and run the place at night. So, you got to understand, you always have to be thinking about what's your real value, not because you just went to college and you're a good person or this or that. You got to really think about your strengths and really how they can participate in the opportunities you're chasing after, and really understand how to play those strengths because you never know when they're going to come up.
That's super smart. The last thing I want to ask you about here is dirt. Dirt. Um, for those who don't know, it might seem very odd, but uh, for a little bit of context, I remember when I first saw Yankee. I don't even know if you actually know this story, but when I was like, what? I don't even think I told you when I came on your podcast 2 years ago, but when I was like 14, I went up to a Yankees game because I was huge. I was super into sports memorabilia and cards and everything. And I only know you. I only knew you guys. I only knew Steiner Sports because I was from New York. I knew that like I could get some cards at like Modell's and like a card shop and memorabilia from you guys. So I remember I was like 14, and I'm very odd, and like I'll recognize business people that I look up to quicker than I will, you know, movie actors,
Makes sense.
like that. And I remember I spotted you, and I told my mom, I was like, I think that's Brandon Steiner, and she's like, oh, you should go say hi. So I went and said hi, and you gave me your business card. I was like 14 at the time. Um, but I remember one of the first things that I was like really impressed by on the business front was that you were able to turn nothing into something in the form of dirt, because you started selling dirt from Yankee Stadium. Um,
Well,
how did that all come to be? And also, thank you for being so nice to me at 14, because not everybody was, and you gave me your business card, and I really appreciated that.
yeah, I think that somehow along the way, like adults forgot that kids have rights, and most times kids are a lot smarter than we are. I don't know where that disconnect happened, but I just never saw it that way. When I had a kid come up to me that was interested in what I was doing or even interested to talking to me, I looked at it as a blessing. What an opportunity to do some market research, because kids, they just tell you the truth. They just tell you everything what's on their
Yeah.
mind. Like, why not take advantage of that? Why do I got to hire some company to do it? So anytime a kid would come up to me, which I'm very grateful that would happen often, I was like blessed. I mean, I would hope you would email me. I had relationships with literally like hundreds of kids that would email me about stuff they liked, they didn't like, questions about my pricing. 11-year-old kids, but I'm like, I remember my wife saying to me, there was an 11-year-old that was like 3 doors down from my house, and I'd take him to a high school game, and then we were playing some basketball. And my wife and my older son had just graduated, went to college, and my wife's like, that's not your son. I said, honey, I know it's not my son. I said, but that's an 11-year-old. I said, you realize the information, the value I have by hanging out with this kid? It's unbelievable. Like, it's amazing. And then, I could share with him whatever is on his mind, not his dad. So I could talk to him straight up about things that's on his mind. I'm 3 doors down. I always ask his parents. Sometimes I go hang out with him when his parents are there, but I always run everything through his parents. I don't want to be one of those weirdos, but it's amazing. An 11-year-old has the capability and the possibility of anything and everything happening. At 11 years old, you could be the next president, the shortstop of the Yankees, the next governor. You could be a Pulitzer Prize writer. I mean, everything's possible. And I love that 11-year-old because of that. Everything is really doable and possible. And I love the mindset. And when you're talking, you really, well, I can't really do that. Who knows how tall you're going to be? Maybe you could play in the NBA. I don't know. So
Yeah, and there's
I've
always,
always
the
enjoyed
opposite.
the relationship I had with younger kids. When I go to the ballpark and their parents and stuff, I always give them the time and love, because I just think it's been a huge help to me to keep that 11-year-old inside of me a little bit as I'm creating products and doing what I'm doing. Like, I still have that 11-year-old. I remember everything I did at 11 and 12, man. It's important years, it's with so many possibilities. So I try to keep that 11-year-old alive in me. And it's been one of my keys to success. I think the dirt thing really is a short story, because it came out a little bit of desperation. We had come up with an idea about putting a capsule of dirt with a photo to kind of make it feel a little cute. And I knew that wasn't going to take us there, but we were selling a lot of them. We were selling like tons of photos with capsules of dirt. Then I started getting dirt from all these different ballparks with my relationship with MLB. And certainly the Yankee Stadium dirt, when we sold the old stadium, really kicked off the dirt. Everybody wanted some of that. But what's funny is I'm selling thousands and thousands of units of dirt pens, capsules, keychains, clocks, you name it. we even took an adhesive. If you go on YouTube, you see there's a story about me talking about the dirt. As a TED talk, actually, if you get a moment to go in there, you watch it, or maybe even on my on BrandonSteiner.com, the TED talk's right there. So we spray adhesive on the photo, put the dirt on. But in my mind, I wanted to sell $100 million worth of dirt. I never thought small. And one of the messages I want to say in this conversation is your first idea is never your best idea. Do not let success in an idea deter you and get in the way of more success. It happens all the time. You have some success, and then you're already thinking what else you could do, instead of thinking how you could do what you've already done well better. And if you can't get your arms around that concept, just think about Mariano Rivera, Apple. They didn't say, we got an iPod, we're good. No. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you got to think about some of the best companies we've ever seen, and they take the good and make it greater, take the greater, make it best, take the best, make it bester. Mariano never threw a changeup, never threw a curve. He was just constantly mastering that cutter, and it became impossible. We all got an iPhone, you know what I mean? So what's interesting is, and the thing I want to end this conversation with is about gratitude and gratefulness. And it's such an important element in faith as part of, success in business. So I was writing Brian Cashman a thank you note because he had helped me so much with my Yankee Steiner relationship and really dealing with players and different things that came up. So I had my graphic person create a map of all the different stadiums. I thought it was cool. Nice poster with all the maps of every stadium. And then inside the dirt from every stadium, I put a little capsule of every dirt around the stadium. And when I realized that not all dirt is created equal. And by the way, the margins on the dirt are phenomenal. So, and the viscosity, the color, the depth, the texture of the dirt is really uniquely different. So I put this poster together. It's got the ballparks on there. It's got all the dirt capsules. And I write Brian a note. I said, Brian, I just want to thank you for everything. I really am grateful. And I created this poster of all the different stadiums. Now you have a little dirt on every team in your office. Boom. I'm now selling $500 poster that has dirt on it. And that was the item. Now, listen, I sold pen sets and thousands of keychains and all kinds of things. But at $19 and $29, now I got a $500 item. So Derek Jeter gets 3,000 hits. We don't know how many hits he gets in each stadium. And then we do the dirt. Every team had a ballpark dirt map. Then you had just a Major League Baseball ballpark map. And then we put it in a way where you can pinpoint the different stadiums you visited with the dirt map. And we just started cranking out $500 a crack of a poster with some dirt on it. And that's how we got the numbers up. We started selling, probably well over, I don't know, it's somewhere in the $50, $60 million plus of dirt. And it happened at a time when business was tough. It happened when business was tough because, we'd gone through that recession back in, 2007, and we were trying to come up with more ideas that were less expensive. So the timing of all this really worked out well, where people were still looking to collect. And I always felt like there was always a time when someone would pick up, put a little dirt in their pocket, some of the players. So they were always helping me promote my product, which was nice. I always thanked them. I'd see a picture of a player grabbing some dirt, and I'd send them a photo and say, thank you for helping me promote my product. Never had to pay them anything, but so it was kind of cool. And, listen, I think your first idea is never your best idea. And a lot of times, if you keep drilling down and brainstorming and really thinking out the idea, it's amazing how far one idea can take you. And you shouldn't be in such a rush to come up with another one.
I think that's great advice. And you definitely, are a great example of that. And thank you for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Mike, by the way, on Collectible Exchange or CX Stuff, I'm giving away any one of my 3 books through the end of August. Just pay for the shipping, pick any one of them out, or autograph it. And I highly recommend any 3. And my pleasure. I figure with the virus, if you're looking for inspiration, motivation, go to Collectible Exchange and I'll ship you out the book. If you want to see some of the stuff I'm talking about, just go to BrandonSteiner.com and you can see some of the videos and blogs and stuff of the stuff I'm talking about.
Awesome. And at Brandon Steiner on Instagram, right?
Absolutely.
My man.
Message me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn guy too.
I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the future.
It's for the grown-ups. If you really want to play the business game, social media wise, I love LinkedIn. It's a great way to communicate.
Awesome. Thank you again, man. I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but appreciate you coming on, and catch you next time.
Stay safe. Stay in touch.